Go on.
Okay, all right. I'll call the meeting to order at 6:31 PM. Can I get a roll call, please?
Sure. Maxanne Dobson,
Here.
Sam Cafiso,
He's remote.
Here,
Dennis Heffernan.
Is Dennis connected yet?
is spinning.
I'm not seeing Dennis connecting.
Okay, I know Dennis wanted to get on remote, so he's
Okay.
excused if he's not
Okay.
here.
Laurie Millette. Here. Robert Zukas.
Here.
Darrell Britton.
Here.
Peter Bracci.
Here.
Bob Hamilton. Julian Kiska.
Here.
I saw Greg Colby.
Muted there
Yeah,
still?
well, I'm trying to mute it, it won't do it.
Anybody else?
Mark is here
Mark
also.
Pearson's also?
She's in, can't.
Can't do,
Okay.
why, is it running in the house? Is
Did I
it-
miss anybody? Is there anybody
No,
else?
I think that's everybody that's here for now.
Okay, nobody hiding in the background.
Yeah.
Okay,
The
good.
Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice for all.
Well, I have, sure, but I have no mic. So I'm gonna
Okay,
hold the two cards.
we have the minutes for November 10th meeting and November 17th meeting.
I need to talk to these. Well,
I make a motion to accept the minutes from November 10th.
I'll second that. I already seconded it.
can we plug that of wild?
Discussion on the minutes?
Again?
Any
Won't
discussion?
turn on, I'm ready
thought
to
it
just
was- I thought you did it.
unplug it.
Huh?
You didn't second it?
I did second it, I just called for discussion. No discussion on November 10th?
Didn't someone on the voice there say they had a discussion about it?
Any discussion out in TV land?
I guess
No. Okay. All those in favor of approving November 10th minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? I don't know if Sam is voting. Do you see anything, Dean?
He is connected, audio-wise.
Can you hear me, Dean?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we can. Did
Okay, because my microphone says it's. Okay, there's a picture, can you hear me as well?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Did you want to vote to approve November 10th minutes?
Is the minutes that I asked that be rectified with Mr. Sherman's comment? Then have
That-
the
yeah, that's-
I asked to be put in, have they been put in?
Yes, they were added.
Yes, that's in this copy. These are the
I don't
revised.
have that copy, so if someone could revision, that'd be great to me.
Yeah, there's a whole paragraph dedicated to it. Do you want me to read it out loud?
But, or if you can, yeah, if I'm gonna prove it, I didn't see it.
It says, Escafiso asked if it is commonplace for town hall to prepare such a presentation for the deliberative session. He noted that the paperwork for the presentation had the town seal on the corner and suggested someone at town hall had prepared it for recreation committee. Jay Sherman said it was not prepared for the commission since they did not see it themselves until deliberative session. He reported it came from town hall because it was directed by the town manager working with the recreation director. He said that to say it was supported or executed by town hall is misleading. It was the town manager. He noted that in a perfect world, the presentation could have been created 8 or 9 months earlier, but it wasn't for various reasons, including the change in leadership of the commission. He said M. Pearson asked DeVos to help him because she had just learned how to create PowerPoint presentations, which neither he, B. Coy, or M. Pearson could. He noted DeVos didn't decide what went into it, just transcribed ideas and pieces of other documents that had been previously created as the project went along. He also noted that if the request hadn't been processed in those 2 days, it would have been 2 more years before the fields could be available. Are those the changes you wanted?
No. Thought Charlene
You want me to
emailed,
read it?
but I can't find it.
You want me to read it?
Yeah, is that
Okay.
not the section?
So Escofiso noted that Jay Sherman presented 2 of the other amendments to the budget for the Highway Department, one for the salt line and the other for the paving line, and asked him if those were something that he felt needed to be done. Jay Sherman replied that the town manager asked him to do it.
Thank you very much. Looking for.
Okay, so do you want to take the vote?
Yes.
Okay, so all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed,
Aye.
abstain. You oppose?
Procedure thing, since we have people who are remote, don't you have to do a roll call?
We already did a roll call.
No, I'm talking about roll call for every vote.
You don't have to
You have
do that.
voting members that are not present. You do that, I believe you have to have a roll call, not everybody's actually present.
No?
If we had one selectman that was out, we had to have a roll call.
So each person has to state,
Someone correct me if I'm wrong?
I don't know that, I mean, as long as she's taking the minutes and knows who is voting.
It's not a matter of discretion, it's a matter of the law. It's a matter of the law.
What law? What does it say that?
The law for remote meetings.
Chairman's option. The way that I understood it, it was the chairman's option.
I would just recommend that if it's on the side of caution, we should do a roll call unless we get a decision.
I think it's gonna take make the meeting so much longer. If she knows who's voting,
Supposed to be made.
well, we're going through like 15 budgets tonight, so.
Well, I don't want to be in violation of the law, so I'm in protest of the decision, and,
Maybe we can
You
look-
are the chair, so you get to make the decision.
So when did we get this information that we had to do it this way?
I never got that information about the meetings.
No.
Oh, and Dennis is now here too. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So how do you
Bob?
know if we vote in favor or not?
you just say, I'm gonna call it right now. Bob made the motion, I seconded it. So all those in favor of approving the November 10th minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain, so the motion carries 9-0-0.
What were the votes of the people who aren't here?
They said aye. Sam said aye and Dennis said aye.
I didn't hear them.
Dennis, did you vote aye in affirmative?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Well, that's the reason it's a roll call.
Yes,
because
Mike.
You can't tell.
My question would be, can the note taker hear us?
Charlene, can you hear them when they say aye?
Yeah, I mean, yes.
Okay.
Yes,
She
I
can
mean-
hear you.
That's all.
If I have a
That's all
question
I'm
about it, I
asking.
will ask, all right?
Maybe it's just as simple as, we can see them on TV, they
Yeah.
raise their hand.
Can you
say
raise
aye.
your hand when we take a vote? Okay.
Sure.
All right, thank you. Okay. Did everybody have a chance to look at the November 17th minutes?
Yes.
I make a motion, we accept the November 17th meeting minutes as written.
Okay.
Second?
Who's the second?
Bob Hamilton seconded. Discussion? Any discussion? No? Okay. All those in favor of approving the November 17th minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain?
So 8,
I haven't seen them.
okay, so Sam's abstaining. So it's 8-0-1.
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay, minutes are done.
It's 9.
Did everybody have a chance to review the emailed questions that I forwarded? They're also printed out. We can just start. So we didn't have any questions for finance. Does someone want to take the finance budget under consideration?
I'll make a motion to take the finance budget under consideration.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Bob
Robert
Zukas.
Zukas.
Discussion? Is there any discussion on the finance budget? No? Okay. All those in favor of taking the finance budget under consideration for $182,825, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay, the motion carries 900. Okay. For legal, I know that we have questions. So I don't know if someone wants to make a motion on the floor and then we can discuss the questions. Does that work?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, is there a second?
A second.
Okay. Discussion
Yeah, if I could.
What was the motion for?
to take the legal budget under consideration.
For 81,000.
Okay, so under legal, the first question was, why has the legal budget gone up so much? Mainly the reason is starting in September, the town received over 60 right-to-know requests that are now averaging 10 a week. This has caused the necessity to have legal counsel engaged to comply with the laws of NHRSA 91A. The second question, I don't know if anybody wants to comment
Well,
on
yeah,
that answer.
I'd like to comment on that.
Okay.
And maybe where the selectman, one of the selectmen's rep is here. Never do I ever remember that kind of a number for legal for the right to know. What seems to be the dramatic change from the past?
Keep shutting off.
I will just say, without violating anything that may have
Right.
gone under non-public,
Yep,
and I can't give names,
nope,
there have been more legal fees and things drawn because of right-to-know requests. And that's all I can go is there. If you want to know more, you can always do a right-to-know request to find out what it was. But I can't publicly announce something that was discussed in non-public.
okay, I guess my question is there a reason you guys are going into more deliberative sessions amongst yourselves?
Because of concerns of privacy and legal implications that you can't discuss certain things and
Okay.
give people's names in public.
Yeah,
That's all I can say.
Yeah.
What paragraph of 91A3 are you talking about on privacy? There's no privacy section for 90, for a right to that, a right
Is
to know?
well,
How are you going under non-public for a right to know request and costing $16,000 more?
well, not because of right to know, but because of legal issues.
Legal issue.
Regarding them. And I can't go into detail because then I give away information.
There is no section for legal.
Well, yes, there is. Could the town manager help out with this? Is he online? Yes.
Yes. I don't have the exact 91A in front of me, but there is a, under 91A, there is an opportunity to go into non-public for legal consultation. In fact, you have to go into non-public for legal consultation. We can do a non-meeting meeting for legal consultation.
Well, no, why do we, well, it has to go to the.
It's already plugged into the router, but they can only reach, I don't have a desk here.
Did that answer your
To
question?
start all over. Is it gonna stay going?
Where's that?
somebody's got somebody going in the background?
Yeah.
Yeah, Sam's on, but we can't see him, but I can hear him.
Sorry, guys, I'm trying to work it out.
Daryl, did that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess I just find it, and there's good reasons for legal, and I understand that. I just find it very disheartening to go from 2017 at $38,000 to up to $81,000 for legal in the course of 3 years.
There is L under 91A3 consideration of legal advice. There's also C, reputation, and J, confidential information in adjudicative proceedings.
Oh, I don't question that. I honestly believe that it's there. It's just, like I said, it's shocking that we're almost double in the course of 3 years.
I think on behalf of the Board of Selectmen, we are as well shocked, but we can't stop these things from happening,
No, you can't.
unfortunately.
You can't.
Well, there is no cost to go into non-public, Julian.
It's not about going to non-public, it's about the legal proceedings resulting of,
Are you talking about something
happening.
getting redacted? I thought the state does that, or the courts do that.
No, we have to go to, we end up having to go to our own attorney sometimes for this.
I don't think that's
So
legal.
I think the issue is just why are there so many right-to-know requests and why do they cost so much?
I'm not going to
No.
give away names, but if you want to find out who was making the request, you could request it on the right to know, and I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
I won't put the Board of
Yeah,
Selectmen or myself in any legal harm by
Dennis.
saying any more.
Dennis has a question. Go ahead, Dennis.
So am I correct at looking at this, that the budget was at 75,000 and then the selectmen added an additional 16,000? Am I seeing that correctly?
I believe that is correct.
That true, Julian?
I believe so. I have to go find the sheet.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. It was 65,000 and then the BOS approved 81,000.
I remember the meeting when it was, I do recall the meeting when we raised it, and that was the reason.
So-
There were more legal
So the
issues going on that were
$16,000
not expected or we normally have,
worth $16,000.
approximately. For the, those are estimates, but because they have, it's not all completed yet. And we were presented numbers and why those numbers were there, so.
I guess that kind of segues into the second question. So ideally, shouldn't the...
I would say hopefully we don't, I would hope and pray that we wouldn't have to spend it when the time comes, but we may have to.
Well, so the second part of the question was the right to know, the cost to print these right to knows should offset the price of printing them. They have to pay to receive the printout, so it's not that, it's actual legal counsel that,
It's legal counsel. It's nothing to do with the printing of the information.
okay,
It's all legal.
It's attorney's fees.
okay.
I can say that.
So we kind of covered question 3 already. And question 4, did anybody else have any other follow-up questions regarding legal?
Well, yeah, I'm noticing that year to date, as of October, we budgeted 75, like you said, last year. But year to date, we were at 46. So even if we got the additional 16 grand in there, we're still not over the 75. Am I correct? I mean,
Well, you'd still have, that's for October, you still have November, December
right,
receipts coming in.
right, I understand that. So,
And I don't have any way of knowing what those receipts are right now.
so adjusting up by 16,000 for next year is in anticipation that this trend of right to know is still going to continue to climb?
Well, I would just say because the issue is not resolved.
I'm sorry?
The issue is not resolved, so,
Oh, okay.
I mean, I can only give you what the town.
No, that's fine.
Town manager presented to us, and
Okay,
everything sounded on the up and up.
okay,
There's some things you have to trust,
okay.
Um,
Nope,
and some things you can't talk about.
nope, that's fine.
I
As long as
apologize, but I can't
see
do
what.
more.
Okay, I'm understanding now that this is an ongoing issue that we foresee could climb higher. Okay,
And if it's not budgeted, then you got to take it somewhere else, and we'd
I
rather not do
understand that. Okay, I understand now. I'm good.
Okay.
Madam Chairman, Town Manager?
Yes, yep,
So you may want to read my response to question 4.
okay. The question was, how would the $16,000 increase in legal budget be used to deal with this individual? We expect under the current volume of requests that this line item needs to be increased again by another 15 to 16,000 to cover the additional legal representation on these excessive 91A requests and possible court expenses. So I guess, like, is there any way without going into non-public that you can mitigate with this individual to stop there's obviously a reason why right-to-know requests are being made. Do you foresee any way to, like, stop it so we don't have to keep going down this road?
There is no way you can stop someone from making requests by the law, the way the law is written.
Mm-hmm.
And whether someone is making valid requests or they're just making a lot of requests that don't seem to make sense is not relevant. You have to reply and respond. And there's just an issue on that right now. And that's all I can say. I mean, you can't stop someone from making a request.
Mm-hmm. Bob?
Right.
Simple question. As this person, I'm assuming it's a person, not a group of people, but a person. Is that correct?
That's possible.
Okay. Has this person or group of persons been asked to, that it's getting expensive, and asked to stop? Has that step been taken? Has that person been, or group of persons, been asked to stop?
To my knowledge, the proper communications have gone back and forth to my knowledge.
Okay, so.
I'm not in direct response of what's going on because it's not for Selectman's role. And we've been informed that the proper responses back and forth are occurring. That's all I can say. If the town manager wishes to add more to that, I don't know. But
I
it's done
can
through
add,
town employees and requests. It's not done through the
Okay,
Board of Selectmen.
let the town manager speak.
There's section 91A that we're prohibited from asking why somebody wants something. And the second comment I have is at the current rate of the right-to-know requests that are coming in, at the current rate of our legal expenses. Our legal expenses monthly are varying between $3,000 and $4,000 a month. So if you extrapolate that out into next year, it's somewhere between $36,000 and $48,000 for this one individual on what's going on right now.
Okay. I guess if there was a specific thing that somebody is looking for, like, here it is this what you need? Is there anything else? So you don't have to keep asking. I don't know what's,
It's never that simple.
No,
yeah.
Yeah.
that's the way it should work. Doesn't mean it always works that way.
Okay.
Leave it at that.
Okay, so that's the discussion. So can we take a vote? All those in favor of taking the legal budget under consideration for $81,000, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, it's 900. Okay, the next question had to do with the planning department. So that budget is for $97,561. We can put a motion on the floor to take that under consideration and then discuss the questions.
I make go ahead.
Which one?
I'm just going off of the order of the packet, so when we get there,
I make a motion, we take the planning under consideration.
okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Darrell seconded it. Okay, so the question that was asked, on average, how many hours a week does the planning administrative assistant work on planning? Under the supervision of the planning director, the planning administrative assistant provides support to not only the planning department and planning board, but also the energy committee and CIP committee. The zoning board of adjustment day-to-day operations are also supported by the planning department admin support. Each entity is fluid and somewhat cyclical, but on average, the split is close to 60% planning, 15% ZBA, and 5% energy committee. The admin also supports special projects as directed by the town manager, which is estimated as 20% of the time. This will be increased in 2021 with more involvement with the potable water project. Are there any questions about that answer? We can follow up with the second question. Is the water budget supplementing the planning administrative assistance pay? The answer is in 2020, there was some minimal overtime for night meetings that were attended. There will be more of a breakout in the water department budget in 2021. Does anyone have any questions or any other follow-up questions?
I have only one question.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't have it right in front of me, and I won't take and bore everybody's time. But, and Mark, maybe you can chime in on this. Planning takes in and has an income. That strictly goes to the general fund, or is it offsetting to the planning at all?
That goes into the general fund.
Could you repeat that?
Yeah.
Yes, that goes into the general fund.
Okay, okay. So that's not offsetting anything out of planning then?
Well, you could make a connection that if it goes into the general fund and then the planning department expenses are paid out of the general fund, it's
Okay.
going through the general.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, any other follow-up questions? No? Okay, all those in favor of taking the planning budget under consideration for $97,561, say aye.
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 Aye. Sam, are you voting?
Yes, aye. Can you hear me?
All right, all those
Not waving.
opposed, abstain, 900. And yeah, Bob, let's jump back to HR. I didn't realize it was on the first page of our packet, so we'll go over the HR personnel budget. This is kind of most of the packet because it does include a lot of information from the state. I don't think we have to go over it in detail, but basically the town's hands are tied as far as how much they have to pay into pension. But we'll go over the questions. Do employees have different health plans to choose from? Simple answer, yes. What is the ratio the town pays to health? Is it 90-10, 80-20? Is it the same for all employees? What percentage of health insurance does the employee pay? So it's 85 town, 15 employee. Yes, the same for full-time employees that choose to take the health insurance, 15% is paid by the employee.
Can I ask a question
Yes.
for that? Is that the same percentage if a family is on the program, or if it's just a single? Does that percentage stay the same?
Yes.
Okay. And what percentage of the people that work for the town utilize the insurance, roughly? I mean, is it 90% or is it 50% or?
Well, I don't want to be quoted or misquoted on an
Right.
exact number, but it's fair to say that, and Darryl, you might not know this, that a couple of years ago, we developed an incentive program to opt out of the insurance program. That is, they had another insurance that they could obtain within the family,
Okay.
and that they would get a stipend, but it was a savings to the town. And so there's a group of people that have exercised that option, and Greg can chime in if he knows more about the numbers. I just don't have those numbers in front of me.
That's fine.
And then, Darryl, I think the next question about performance management was yours, and I think they needed more clarification on that, if you want to explain what you were looking for.
You want to just read that and then?
Yeah, so the question was, last year's performance management was $4870, but now it's $25,000. What was the reason for the increase?
Yeah, maybe you guys can explain that one, Mark or Greg.
I'd like to defer to Greg on this one.
And by what's listed is, please clarify the question. You have that last year's performance management was 4870. The 2020 budget, which I consider last year, the budget is $25,000. So I don't know what you mean by last year's was 4870.
Okay, I thought,
20,
okay,
I mean, right now, $22,950 is the year-to-date expended through December 8th of this year. The 2019 performance management was budgeted at 38 with 37,000 expended by the end of 19, and the 2020 budget is 25,000. So we're level funding it from 2020 to 2021.
okay, my apologies, I misread that.
Yeah,
No
Bob?
problem.
Bob?
Please go back to the previous question and see if Greg Colby has an approximate number of people that have taken advantage of the opting out of insurance.
Can you speak into a microphone?
We can't hear you.
We cannot hear you.
Am I on?
Hold on, they were adjusting his microphone.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Could we go back to the previous question of how many people have opted out of the insurance? Or approximately how many? I just want to get a feel for how successful that's been.
I think there's 5 or 6 that take advantage of it. Maybe 4 or 5, right around 5, I would say.
Okay,
I'm
that's
comfortable
good.
with.
That's good. Thank you, Greg.
Julian, did
You're
you
welcome.
have a question also?
I have a point of order. I just looked up on the internet. It says, "All votes taken at a meeting at which any member participates electronically must be a roll call vote." That's what the law says.
Is there a RSA on that?
Well, I can do more. I don't have a computer. But there is a document it refers to, which is very long.
I really think we're getting caught in the weeds. I mean, if our note taker is able to record all our votes,
It
I
doesn't
think we're
matter
in
what,
good
if the
shape.
law says you must do a roll call vote, the law says you must do a roll call vote. I've been in Rockingham Planning Commission meetings. We do roll call vote every single meeting. We've been remote ever since the very beginning. Board of Selectmen, if one person is missing, we do a roll call vote. It's not a matter of choice or if we think it's good enough.
Is this
If the
the
law
new-
says must be a roll call vote, that's what it says.
Is this part of the new memorandum that they sent out when COVID happened and people
Yes, it
were-
is, but it's always been that. This has always been the rule. For remote meetings isn't new. Remote meetings has always been allowed by law, and it's always been roll call vote if someone's not present, because you can't always determine who said what when there's multiple people out on the telephone line or the TV or whatever. It's just, it's a matter of, you either comply with it or you don't.
So this rule has been around for a while, and it hasn't been followed by the Board of Selectmen until the last
Well,
meeting that
we've
you
never
had.
we've never held a remote meeting for Board of Selectmen, so we've never had to use
so
it.
you have members remotely.
What was that, Dennis?
That's not true, Julian. You had members remotely. You had Selectman Flynn remote.
Right.
Last week,
You
the
had.
last
them
couple of weeks, yes, but
before that.
before that, I don't remember any time that we've ever had a remote member participate in the meeting.
You're telling
Since
me
I've been
you
on the Board
didn't
of
have
Selectmen for 6
Selectman
years.
Flynn as a remote? Wow.
I'm just gonna keep going with what we're doing. That's gonna be documented in the minutes. We can, people at home see the people raising their hands also for votes.
Including the ones on the screen.
What was that?
Including the ones on the screen, we can see them.
Right, they're raising their hands. So let's just get with this, continue with the way that it's been going, and if there's an issue, we'll go back and revote everything afterwards.
Okay.
Okay, where were we? Did we finish going over all the questions for
Human resources, yeah.
Bob?
Another point of order for Julian. We're just taking these budgets under consideration. We're not approving these budgets.
It's still a vote.
So it's, okay,
Vote is a vote.
Okay.
Do what you
Any-
want. I can't make you do anything.
well,
Any other questions regarding HR? No? Okay, so does someone want to make a motion to take it under consideration?
I'll make a motion to take it under consideration.
Okay, Daryl.
second,
Bob Hamilton, second. We already, discussion? No discussion. All those in favor of taking the human resources personnel budget under consideration for $1,910,526. All of those in favor say aye, and please raise your hand.
aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Yep.
Abstained. Sam, are you raising your hand, voting? Is he frozen?
Yeah, he's got a loose connection on, or slow connection on his end. There's
Okay,
nothing
so
we can
we'll do 8. Yeah, Julian?
I just want to make one mode of caution. If you don't do it, and the law says you have to do it, that would technically could make every one of these votes invalid.
And I said, if
Then
we,
you'd have to do it all over again.
and I said we'd just vote all of them all over again. But
Okay.
like Dennis pointed out, when Selectman Blinn was out, you guys weren't doing roll call for his votes.
When we had a vote, far as I know, we did. Jay DeRoche was out last week.
That
and
was
we did
last
the
week,
same
but
thing.
I'm talking about like 2 months ago. It doesn't
I'll
matter.
have to go look at the video.
Okay, so Sam did not vote on that one.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Did you? Yes,
Yeah,
okay, so
yeah.
900. Okay,
Sorry.
that's okay. All right, the next one is zoning. Did we have any questions for zoning? Let me just look in the packet.
Don't think so.
These are planning. I don't think there were any for zoning.
I don't remember any.
No, there weren't.
I don't
Okay.
remember that either.
Does someone want to make a motion to take the zoning budget of $4,050 under consideration?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Daryl made the motion. Is there a
I'll second it.
Bob Zukas. Discussion? Anybody have any questions, concerns about zoning? No? Okay, all those in favor of the zoning budget, taking it under consideration for $4,050, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Sam?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Opposed?
You guys hear me, see me?
Abstain. All right, motion carries 900. Okay, there were questions for general government, so let's someone make a motion to take it under consideration, and then we can do discussion.
I make a motion.
Okay, Pete is making the motion to take the general government buildings under consideration for $348,650.
I'll make that motion.
Are you, second, Pete made it. Do you want to?
Second it.
Yep, okay. Daryl seconded it. Discussion, so the questions for that were, how much was spent on renovating the town hall annex? And the answer was $13,483, of which the GOFERR reimbursed $10,921. Do you have any follow-up questions?
I have an issue with using that building, and I will just state it. You know, it is what it is at this point, but as soon as the great COVID scare is over and the building department can go into the police department as it was laid out to the town of Plaistow, I think at that point, it would be good to make other decisions for that building. I have great heartburn with that building being used for that, but I understand it, and for right now, but I certainly wouldn't want it to turn into a long-term thing.
Pete?
Daryl, I have to agree with you 100%. The answer to question 4, why is the old courthouse being used? And the answer was because of COVID and social distancing. we decided to use the old courthouse, I think, before the COVID problem, and we just disregarded the recommendation to go to the old firehouse, so I would be in absolute agreement with you.
Yeah.
I
Julie.
think there was another concern, that if they were to like move the building department to the safety complex at this time, and that would cause people to have to go to that building from the public, contractors, et cetera, then they were concerned that the traffic could bring COVID to the safety complex. And if our safety personnel, police or fire, were exposed somehow, that would really put our town in jeopardy if suddenly COVID got around the police department or the fire department. So I think that was
Agreed.
also a factor.
Yeah.
And
think he's talking
it
about
could be moved
after.
to the police department / safety complex. It could also go back to where it was in the third floor again. That's a choice to be made down the road, because it worked here too. So there are
Well, it did.
multiple factors.
The only thing I want to make really clear is that the safety complex was sold with an office for the building inspector and his associates within there. I would hate to think that that office somehow gets scoffed up by people within the complex for their use, when at some point in time, it goes back there.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's
Can I comment
different
on
things that
Daryl's
went back
point
and
there?
forth, and that is for future discussion.
Yep.
And those are very valid concerns.
Dennis wants to chime in.
So early on, Darryl, you're correct, that was part of the plan from that, and I was on that, building safety complex committee. That was scratched, I believe, when we had reduced the cost over there. So the plans we voted on and that was approved, I don't believe that was in part of those plans. I think it was early on plans when it was at about 12, I think we had it at, and then we reduced it quite a bit in order to get a favorable vote at town.
In order to get, excuse me, in order to get what?
The favorable vote at town meeting to get the safety complex.
Okay.
Okay, and I'll stand corrected, Dennis, if that's the case. Then I'll hope that it comes back into this building, if that's the case.
That's
Bobby.
as I recall it, Darrell. I could be wrong, but that's how I recall it.
Did you have your hand up? No.
I did, but it was just to explain that originally the complex, first time it went up for bid or for vote by the voters, it was like 10.5 million. And when they brought it down to 8.5 or whatever it ended up being, that's when some of these changes came about.
Okay. And again, I stand corrected if that's the case, and I'll be looking forward to them coming back to this building after
We will too.
the COVID situation.
And then the next question that was asked was, is equipment divided up and allocated to each building? They wanted more clarification. I think that was one of your questions.
Yeah.
Can you explain what you were looking for?
What I was looking for is equipment that takes care of the buildings, whether it's, lawnmowers or it's trucks. Does each one fall into its own pocket? In other words, I understand up at the highway, you'd have a pickup truck with a plow on it. That's for the highway department. That's being used there. A lawnmower that's used down here, is that allocated to a different bucket? Is everything allocated to a different bucket, or is that all into one big bucket, all the equipment that's used?
It's somewhat of a big bucket. Maybe the finance director could clarify that more.
I'm still not following you, but if
Okay.
we don't have lawnmowers for every single building, we have one set that the highway department takes around. If it is feasible to take something from building to building, it is done. If it's not feasible and the building, needs their own vacuum cleaner, then, it's a small cost item. Each building has its own vacuum cleaner.
Well,
Is that what you're getting
Okay,
at?
Well, things like, do we transport, for instance, snow blowers to each building, or does each building have its own snow blower? I'm not sure how it's done, and is that cost allocated to that particular building? or is it all just lumped together?
We have the building maintenance department that would have the snow blower and the tractor. All of that, all those costs are within the building maintenance budget. There is no separate allocation of use of equipment to each building,
Okay,
except what is included in this budget: heat, electricity, things of that nature that can be clearly identified.
okay.
Does that answer your question?
It does.
Yeah, okay. And then the next question was a breakdown of the income by department. I don't know if anybody's had a chance to review that and has any questions on it. We can revisit it next week if,
Yeah, that's one that I'd like to revisit.
okay. I think that was the
Well,
rest.
we didn't talk, you didn't mention the paving
Oh,
and the
right.
stripes.
Yep, that was before. So the question was, where did the funds come to pave the parking lot at Town Hall Annex? And that was in the 2020 budget that the BOS had approved. Does anyone have any further questions about that? No? Okay, so we can take the vote on the general government building budget, taking it under consideration. All those in favor of taking the general government buildings budget for $348,650 under consideration, say aye, and please raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? So 900. Okay, the next one is, we did planning, we did zoning, insurances. And just, I don't think we had any question about insurances.
I think that's pretty much motherhood and apple pie. You can't do
Right.
much with it.
Does someone want to make a motion to take the insurances budget for $142,416 under consideration?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Darrell made the motion. Second?
Second that.
I'll second.
Bob Zukas seconded. Discussion? Yes.
One question, insurance, how often do we go out for quotes on insurance? Or are we just doing strictly the state of New Hampshire insurances?
The town, under the property liability insurance, there's really only one carrier. I do monitor listserv and the like, and there's really only Primex who provides that with the indemnification and the like that the town would be seeking. There's a lot of communities that look at this every year and they always come back to Primex because the cost may be cheap in year one, but they skyrocket the increase in year two.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, discussion? Yep.
And what was the justification for the Board of Selectmen adjusting it up almost $6,500?
Based on the insurance rates.
So when the town manager made a recommendation of $135,924, the Board of Selectmen felt that was under? I'm sorry.
I can't recall that meeting and what the reason for that particular adjustment was.
Greg Colby wants to answer. Yeah, Greg?
The original request is an estimate between the time that the request was made and when the selectmen voted on it, we got the actual increase by the insurance company, so that is why.
Okay,
Yeah, that sounds right.
great. So
Thank
the
you.
insurance quote was actually higher.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yep, you're welcome.
Okay, is everybody ready to vote?
Yes.
Can
All
I just
those
ask
in-
one quick, can I
Yeah.
ask one quick
Yes,
question?
Dennis?
You expect that to be the final number, Greg, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so all those in favor of taking the insurances budget for $142,416 under consideration, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, abstained, 900. Okay, the next one was advertising and regional associations. Is there a motion on the floor to take that budget under consideration for $26,500?
I'll make that motion.
Robert Zukas made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Darrell seconded. Discussion? There were no questions that anybody had, but does anybody have any questions now?
No.
No? Okay. I guess we're ready to vote. All those in favor of taking the advertising regional association budget under consideration for $26,500, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Oh, so Dennis opposed? Or do you have?
No, I approve.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. It looked like a thumbs down from here.
No,
Oh, okay.
approve.
So 900.
Do that often.
Okay. Now we're on to cable. And the cable budget is $31,544. Is there a motion to take that under consideration?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Darrell made the motion. I'll second it. Discussion? Bob?
I just have a question for Dean. Are we capable of having a remote meeting at the library?
We are not. That's not really a viable option.
Okay.
Do this.
If it's a large group setting, I just want to elaborate on that a little more. If there's a large group setting as what we have right now, that's really not a viable option because we don't have, the facility down there is not equipped with what we have here.
Okay.
If there was a smaller group that because if there's a small group, there's a possibility, but ideally, we would either be full remote or out of this building.
Okay.
There's really, technologically, there are some challenges with switching facilities.
Follow-up question?
Yep.
Would be, how will this affect candidates' night at the library?
Part of the issue is with going to the library is there is a significant increase in setup time and production time to make that facility work. I'm planning on when that day comes, we will be able to make that happen.
Okay, so it won't interfere with that?
Not as much, but there is an expectation that we would be doing candidates night either in the library or at another, I mean, it would not be capable of being held in this room, but there's still details that need to be worked out with that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Bob?
I see there's an increase
Oh, sorry.
by $2,000 on dues and subscriptions. Is that COVID-related? Is that because of all the Zooms and go-to-meetings, or?
That is correct. That is the bulk of that. Live stream also increased by a minimal amount as well, but the bulk of that increase is in fact an amount that would allocate either a continuation with go-to-meeting and go-to-webinar, or possibly at that expiration, look at another service.
Okay, thank you.
Dennis, did you have your hand up before?
I did, but the question I had, Dean, was, any consideration, or would we be able to use the town garage if we needed to use it for a town meeting?
Yes, that is actually in the works. That is actually a major project that we're going to be undertaking relatively shortly. It has been approved by the Board of Selectmen. We will be outfitting that facility with similar technology to what we have in this room right now, that we will be able to handle a larger on-location event with the similar features as to what we have in this room.
What would you use for to do that money-wise?
I'm sorry,
Where
what
would
was,
those funds come from? Where would those funds come from?
that project was approved from the Cable Franchise Fund.
Excellent, good, thank you.
Darrell, did you have a?
No, that was the question I had.
Yeah.
And I also, Dean, I also noticed that every year, or relatively, equipment repairs is usually budgeted around 250, 500, I see, so on and so forth, but the actual ends up running a considerable amount more. I mean, last year it was budgeted $250. I see year-to-date, we've spent $6,482. Is that, I mean, is that something that will continue? I mean, we're budgeting $500 every year, but twice now, we've had an increase over the budget of what was budgeted by several thousand.
Yes, typically what that line covers is not so much these days like with repair as much. For example, if a 5-year-old camera fails on us, we're likely not going to send it to a repair shop. It's going to need to be replaced. And that's typically for unanticipated or unscheduled replacement of equipment. And this year was an exception to, and I believe that figure was most likely the upgrading that we had to do with the facility here to accommodate the sound system with the remote participation. There were some components that needed to be upgraded relatively quickly to make that happen.
And with that happening, okay, so correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, I've heard a couple different instances here where we've had to increase or spend money for COVID. Is any of this recoverable? I mean, is the state not reimbursing towns for this kind of expenses?
I'm going to have to defer that to either Mark or Greg.
Yeah, Greg.
We got quite a bit of what has been spent during 2020 has been reimbursed by the Gopher grant, but the Gopher grant has run out, so any future, costs are borne by the town. So in this case, some of the things that you see here. I don't have any word as whether there's going to be more Gopher money or not, but a lot of this for 2020 has been reimbursed by Gopher.
Darrell, did you have?
Yeah, question, Greg, for you. What's if there is any more, I don't know, is there still income coming in from the cable carrier that will cover some of this stuff?
Well, I mean, we're at the 5th year of the franchise agreement that paid the town $20,000 per year. That is the cable special revenue fund that is outfitting the highway garage, but also has gone to a lot of other things. This doesn't fully deplete that fund. And hopefully with a new franchise agreement, we will continue that $20,000 per year. Whether it covers it or not, specifically, we'd have to look into the agreement.
Okay.
Any other questions about cable? No.
No, I want to go back to, again, I'm sorry. So Greg, where would this be shown? Anything that's been reimbursed or offset from the Gopher grant, where would that be notated or shown?
What I have done is I consider those expenses off budget, if you will, and have moved all related Gopher grants over to general fund as Fund 1. I have a grant fund that is labeled as Fund 2, and all of the expenses related to Gopher, related to the first responder stipend program, FEMA, anything that we've received money on is all sitting in Fund 2, which is a grants fund.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Are we ready to vote, take this under consideration? All those in favor of taking the cable budget of $31,500 $44 under consideration, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 900. Okay, the next one is other general government, and there were no questions on that. Is there a motion to take the other general government budget under consideration for $196,500?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Darrell made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Bob Hamilton, second. Discussion? So
I,
then-
if I could, one
Yes.
question. Again, it's sort of a similar question as the last time. The town manager recommended 130,000. BOS added 4,000. Was there a specific reason, or?
Changes to hardware requirements. Also, we had a lot of problems occurring recently in other towns where their systems are being hacked. So we had to put more security in place as well. I believe that was discussed during this meeting, and that's why just like before, was an estimate for insurance. We got more information during the meeting.
Okay.
And then we adjusted it appropriately. And I guess if you want exactly specifics, I'm sure the town manager has the
The finance
specifics.
director wants
Yeah.
to chime in.
The $4,000 increase by the selectmen was a reduction from the executive budget for the technical supplies and equipment that the chair of the Board of Selectmen wanted to take that line item since it was internet related and move it to the computer internet line. So it's a reduction to the executive and an increase to the other general government
Okay.
specifically.
Any other questions? No? Are we ready to vote? All those in favor of taking the other general government budget under consideration for $196,500, say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? 900. The next one is building inspection. And I think there was one question on the second printout you guys have, page 5, inspection. The only question was, is the admin staff for this department full-time? And the answer was yes. So do we want to take the building inspection budget under consideration for $136,881? Does anyone want to make a motion?
Well, I have
We can
one
do
question.
discussion after.
Okay, yes.
Does someone want to make the motion?
I make the motion.
Okay. Second? I'll second it. Okay, here, question, discussion?
Yeah, I see that the actual for a temporary or backup inspector, we budgeted for a backup inspector $400 last year, and we spent almost 4,000. And now we're looking at 500 for this year. What's the reason for a backup inspector costing us $4,000?
I can answer that.
Okay.
So, when you have a one-person department, and that person goes out on medical leave, it's certainly unanticipated. So we contracted with a inspector to fill in, and, the 400 would have covered 10 inspections at $40 each. Obviously, the primary person was out of work for a long time, and that 400 was not enough. So here's your choice. We budget $400 or $500 and hope that we don't need to call somebody in, or we budget $4,000 or $5,000 in case somebody goes out. That's our two choices.
All right.
Yeah, Pete?
But Mark, when we budget that money, don't we get that money back with the payment for the inspection? So whether it's 400 or 4,000, the money still comes back in and it's like a zero, a wash?
Yes, that's correct. That is true, since you brought that up, that is true for the electrical and the plumbing. It's just that out of the three inspectors, building inspector versus electrical and plumbing, the building inspector is a staff member that works full-time, so he does not get paid for each inspection, per se. He is on staff, so that money goes into the general fund. But it is true that, so when we call in a replacement inspector to fill in for that full-time staff member, then every inspection that that person performs, to Mr. Bracci's point, if whatever was spent on that line item would have come in as revenue, so it was a wash.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah, Daryl, oh, Dennis, and then Daryl, Dennis, go ahead.
Okay. The building inspector, now, that's a new person in that position, correct? And they're coming in at the same salary as the previous building inspector who was with the town for, I can't tell you, I'm gonna go over 20 years. Am I looking at that correctly?
I would say you are, as far as the budget goes. The person that is hired is actually interim and is not at the full pay scale.
Okay.
Daryl?
Mark, can you enlighten us a little bit on inspections being done in 20 versus 19 and what may be anticipated in 21? Number of inspections?
Well, I don't have a crystal ball. You know, obviously, we have some hard numbers for 19 and 20. 2021, there's varying opinions out there that the economy will stay where it is. Some people say it will go down, and maybe some other people are optimistic it will go up. I have no idea.
So we really don't know what the income will be, or even a reasonable guess what the income will be off of that department.
The total 2021 budget, as you know, is the best guesstimate that we can try to guess what the cost will be to run the town prospectively 16 months ahead of time, because the budget process started with department heads prior to September. So all these figures in front of you is the best guess based on historical data and based on what we think may or may not happen in 2021.
Okay.
Can I?
Yeah, Dennis?
I just want to go back to my question I had. So, did I hear you correct, Mark, saying that the 105 is budgeted too high? We're paying less than that right now for the building inspector?
It's not too high. That 105 involves more than just one person. There's also a full-time staff member, administrative assistant over there. What I'm telling you is there was the long-term employees pay, and then there was a new person that came in that did not start at that pay.
Okay, all right. Thank you for clarifying.
You're welcome.
Did you get your question answered too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a vote on building inspection. All those in favor of taking the building inspection budget under consideration for $136,881, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained, so that's 900. Okay, the next one I have on the agenda is police, and that's in the second packet on page 5. Our questions are there. So we can have discussion if someone wants to make a motion of taking the police budget under consideration for $2,011,175. Does someone want to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Sukas.
Anyone want to second it?
I'll second it.
Okay, Daryl seconded it. Discussion? So the questions we had were a better understanding of line 14210201110. It seems to be all over the place from year to year. And the answer was, this is budgeted each year based on the actual officer salaries, longevity, ETO buybacks, hourly shift differentials, and hourly educational stipends at the time of preparing the budget each fall. This fluctuates and changes each year due to union contracted step increases and raises, promotions, new hires, retirements, or resignations. Also in 2020, there was a shift moving officers from administrative positions to the street. Do you have any follow-up questions based on that answer?
Yeah, I do. When is the new contract up, or when's the existing contract up? When's the new contract start?
I believe we're in a 3-year, and Greg, can you just help me when the current one expires? Is it 21 or 22? I think it might be 22.
I think it's 22, because if it was 21, we'd be in negotiations right now, so it's got to be April of 22.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. The next question was regarding the year-to-date telephone line at, was $2,737.27, and this year's request was $4,646, so we just wanted to know what that increase entailed. The answer was, the department must purchase VoIP licenses and data cards for the recording lines on the dispatch phones, which is $1,150 a year. This is a new item to the line due to the recent change in the town's phone system. However, even with this new cost in 2021, they were able to reduce this line by $130.
Okay.
All right. The next question was, the gas number has stayed at $25,000, and a decrease in petroleum costs should yield a savings, but the answer was they anticipate an increase in 2021. In 2020, $16,200 has been spent year-to-date. Due to COVID-19, there have been less patrols and responses. Any other questions about that?
No,
Go ahead.
I still think that there'd probably be a reduce. I don't think we're away from this COVID issue for at least another 6 months, if not more. So I would have thought that it'd be some reduction, plus the price of gas is down quite a bit even now than what it was a year ago. So it's just something to look at, I think, and probably reevaluate a little bit.
Okay, the next question was, the department, each year vehicle maintenance is much less than was budgeted for, and the answer for that was that the department has 10 vehicles, 4 of which have high mileage, more than 65,000 miles, and 2 with over 55,000 miles. These 6 vehicles are out of warranty and incur higher costs for repairs and replacement parts. They also go through pursuit-rated tires on annual basis that they currently purchase. Go ahead.
Question to that, how often are we rotating our vehicles in the police department?
I assume you mean by rotating as in rotating a vehicle out and then buying a new one?
That's correct, Mark.
It's been an irregular schedule. I can only speak to, with certainty, since I arrived here in 2017, that we had a robust program that rotated 8 vehicles from the fleet to the outside detail fund, and those were the highest miled vehicles and the oldest vehicles. So what we did supplement the fleet when we did this is I sought board approval to purchase newer vehicles to replace some of those vehicles that were being rotated out. And there was also a benefit to the general fund that the detail fund actually paid the town for those vehicles that were sold to the outside detail fund. So the outside detail fund, Darrell, acts like an enterprise fund. Okay. So the town derived some revenue. It went into the general fund, although those funds were not the exact funds that were paid for the new vehicles. But what happened is we upgraded 4 new vehicles over the last 2 years. So I know that's a long-winded answer, but I feel it necessary to kind of explain because there's a lot of moving parts. And if your question goes further to wonder what the rotation will be like in the near future, the chief tells me that with the program that he has now, with the fleet that he has now, that he does not anticipate asking for any new vehicles for at least 3 years.
Okay.
Thank you.
The next question was in regards to the crossing guard. Wouldn't it be less knowing what's happened with the world of education? Why has it not decreased? And the answer for that was, we budget for the crossing guards for 5 days a week for Pollard, Timberlane Regional High School, and Timberlane Regional Middle School. We receive 100% reimbursement from the Timberlane Regional School District for all payroll costs of the crossing guard duties at the high school and middle school. We do not factor in the situation with COVID, as it's very fluid with the schools regarding remote learning, hybrid learning, or being back in the classroom 5 days a week. Yep.
Just a
go
quick question on that. So it will only be funded by the school based on the time they're in school? In other words, if a real outbreak happens and we're remote learning for the next 3 months, will that be deducted out of our stipend from the Timberlane district, or, you know?
Greg, can you answer that?
Yeah, we bill the school based on actual time spent that we pay. So if there is no crossing guard, we don't pay the crossing guard, nor do we receive any money from the school.
All right, great. Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
That was all the questions regarding the police. Are there any other questions that didn't make it that we can maybe ask and find out? Yep.
One last question, and maybe Mark or Greg. Do you anticipate bringing on any more officers related to this budget in the coming year in '21?
We have never been fully staffed. We have attempted to become fully staffed, and we are still trying to become fully staffed, and we're real close. I can expand further if you want. Does that answer your question?
I'm just trying to get a rough idea of, you know, if we're going to be looking with this budget the way it is now, do you think we'd be adding 1, 2, 3, 4 more officers to be added to this that's not reflected in this budget now?
No, that is not any discussion we've had. We feel that the number of officers that are currently within the budget will be sufficient, as there's been a realignment and a readjustment for the deployment of personnel and some economies within the department. I do not anticipate asking for any new personnel, that is additional personnel than we currently have. And just a little footnote, and again, Darrell, I try to explain it in detail, just not knowing if you do some of these details, but there is one officer, the cost for the newest officer with all benefits and roll-ups is contained in the Pennachuck Plaza deed, that Pennachuck Plaza pays for the full cost of the newest officer to the department annually, and that is revenue that comes into the department.
Right, I remember that.
Right, general fund, excuse me, the general fund.
Okay.
Dennis has a question.
Mark, could you just talk a little bit? I know we had changed the prosecutor, was it last year or the year before? Just talk about that. I know that was a big discussion at the time, how that's working out.
Thank you for the question. It's working out very good. In fact, I can say we had high expectations and they've exceeded our expectations. So what we had was a contract with the Rockingham County Attorney's Office that supplied one prosecutor, and that prosecutor did not do administrative hearings in Concord and did not do juvenile. So we had to scramble at that time to figure out how to fill those voids. Since we went to a contracted prosecutor, we actually contracted with a price, but we got 2 prosecutors. And the two prosecutors can cover everything that was previously covered by the assistant county attorney, but then also cover the administrative license suspension hearings in Concord and the juvenile matters. And then on top of that, in the contract, we added in that they will provide training to the officers on an annual basis. So I'm pleased to say, and of course, their contract came in less than what the cost was for the town of Plaistow for that, their share at the time of the assistant county attorney. So now we have these two attorneys that work for us, and the cost is less than what we were previously paying, and we're getting more for our dollars.
Good,
Okay.
thank you.
Any other questions for police? No? Okay, are we ready to vote and take the police?
Sam,
Oh, yep,
Sam's got
Sam.
a
Go ahead,
You guys
Sam.
hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Can I direct the town manager? Mark, there was skepticism with the police chief being a part-time position. I see it's almost exactly a year now where that position's been filled by the current chief at the part-time level, if you want to call it that. Wondering if you had any feedback from him or the department, or good, bad, or otherwise, just to see how that year worked out, that position being filled the way it's being.
Okay, it's working out very well. The feedback I get is sometimes the feedback is that when you don't receive any complaints, you can use complaints as a rationale to say whether something's working well or working bad. I've received no complaints, and I've had good feedback from everybody that has spoke to me, and there has not been one citizen's complaint, not one.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, so we can vote on that now. So all those in favor of taking the police budget under consideration for $2,011,175. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained, so 900.
It's tough for me to see that number. When I first came to town, the budget was under $100,000.
For police?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Well, you're showing your age.
80 years
Be
ago,
careful.
Daryl.
80 years ago.
That's when he was still using the jail in the basement.
Let's jump to emergency management, because that's the next one that I have on my sheet. I know it's lower in the agenda, but we can probably get that out of the way. There were no questions that were sent in on that one. Is there a motion on the floor to take the emergency management budget of $17,600 under consideration?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Darrell made the motion. Anyone want to second it?
I'll second it.
Bob seconded it. Discussion? No discussion? Okay, all those in favor of taking the emergency management budget under consideration, say aye.
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 Opposed, abstained, 900. Okay, the next one is highway, and that is in the second smaller packet. Page 4 is where our questions were. We can make a motion to take it under consideration and then have discussion. So does someone want to make a motion to take the highway budget of $842,165 under consideration?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Darrell made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Bob Hamilton seconded. Discussion? So our first question was, overtime year-to-date is $21,041.71. The new number of, we wanted to know how the new number of $40,000 for overtime was derived. And the answer is, historically, I would take the previous 3-year average and use it as my best guess number for the next year's budget. The previous 3-year overtime average is $52,360.49. but because the year-to-date actual is on the low side of average, I would level fund that line. A couple of other things to consider. One, 2020 is not over, and we could have a couple of long-duration storms during a weekend, and that actual year-to-date number could increase dramatically. Two, the chances of having another way below normal snow season is unlikely. Lastly, each employee has increased their salary by 3%, with an additional 3% before the end of the projected budget term. Does anyone have any follow-up questions with that answer?
No, and if I could.
Yes.
I understand the rationale behind it. What I try to caution always is, even in business, is overestimating because you're afraid you won't have enough, because your business or your town ends up having to pay that bill in taxes for the year. So while I understand where that's coming from, and I appreciate it, I just would hope that we all can take and be very, very careful about overestimating what might be.
I just had a question about the 3% increase, an additional 3% before the end of the projected budget term. Is that because of collective bargaining agreements? That increase is automatic? Is that every year?
No,
Yeah.
that's controlled by a collective bargaining agreement every year, if that's what the collective bargaining agreement says. In this case, that's a 5-year agreement. So what we're saying is that that's going to affect the overtime line because of the incremental increase to the wages. They're going to affect the overtime line because there's a 3% increase for the workers.
So I just wanted to clarify, so is it a 3% raise every year for the 5 years the agreement is?
I don't recall off the top of my head, but Greg, do you recall exactly what that is?
I believe that it is.
Okay.
Year 1 and year 2 had some incremental increases that were targeted, but I believe the last 2 or 3 years of the contract are a straight 3% for all those that are covered by it.
Okay. The second question was about general supplies. The year-to-date was $10,970.56, and the new budget is $30,000, and I guess just the history of numbers didn't follow that increase. The answer to that question was, it would appear the question of comparing two different line items, general supplies and general supplies traffic. General supplies is $10,000 for 2021, an increase of $3,100 over 2020. General supplies traffic is level funded from the prior year at $30,000. This is to do the striping and other necessary work and road signs that are in need of replacement and completion.
That answered my question.
Okay, anybody have follow-up questions about that? The third question was about gas and oil had gone down, so was this considered in the budget? Budget for 2021 is $15,000. This is a decrease of $2,200 over prior year, so it was considered. What roads were not paved in 2020? Was there a contract with Continental for 2020 to have roads paved? The only road that was planned to be paved but wasn't completed in 2020 is Red Oak Drive, but money is planned to be encumbered from the remaining highway block grant revenue to complete the paving. We shimmed it so we could plow it better. I wanted to monitor it for an entire frost freeze cycle because since its acceptance, there has been some drastic settling and heaving, and I wanted to see what it does before I put the final overlay on it. Any questions about that answer? No. How much of a savings is there now that the town can buy salt in bulk? We have always purchased our road salt in bulk. The town piggybacks on the New Hampshire DOT bid pricing, so we are required to buy in bulk in order to get that pricing. There's a potential saving when you can start the winter season with a good chunk of your average year's usage. This year's cost of salt per ton did not change from last season's, but there has been several years where the price has increased drastically. There has also been a couple of years when it has gone down. It's also more of a question of product availability. With the ability to store more product, we are less likely to run out and can avoid issues with supply availability. Does anyone have any follow-up questions? No? Okay, so we, oh,
I
did you
do
have,
have-
oh, Sam has one too. Do you wanna?
Go ahead, get
Go
Sam.
ahead, Sam.
You hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
My question is, and this was my question that was submitted. Part of the selling us of the big new salt shed was to be able to fill it when the prices were better. This answer doesn't really make sense with that line of thinking, or what am I not seeing? We were always told our salt shed was so small that we had to buy basically at whatever, at the mercy of whatever we get salt, because the shed was so small. Got sold a big salt shed because we were supposed to be able to fill it when the price was lowest during the summer. I'm not arguing the answer to this question. I'm just asking for the answer of the part about us being able to fill this big salt shed with cheaper salt, if that's happening or.
Okay, so the answer is, since we just put 400 tons of salt into the new building, based on the New Hampshire DOT bid pricing that hasn't changed in 2 years, I would just submit to you that if there's a price increase in the future, we have exactly done what the intent was to purchase it in bulk at a lower price. So we now can store, we estimate about 800 tons of salt, where the other old dilapidated, fallen down structure could only hold minimal amount of salt. So, you know, it was a chicken and an egg thing happening. When you needed salt because of the multiple storms back to back, they were hauling the salt in during the storm because they were running out of the place to store it. That was one problem. That led to availability, that during a storm, you're not going to see these salt trucks driving through a blizzard to bring a load of salt. So we have accomplished the fact that we have 400 tons of salt in the new shed, and we will continue to fill it according to the budget, and hopefully get to, say, 600 to 800 tons of salt. As we deplete the old salt up at the old building, we're using that now first, that's first out, and then we'll eventually get to the salt in the new building. So we did accomplish what we set to do. And as far as the big structure, you know, it's a 60 by 40 floor space, and it can only handle a certain amount of salt. You can't stack it to the roof. But the building design was multi-purpose. It was not only a salt shed, but it was a long roof with a lot of real estate for solar panel. We certainly could have made the building with a smaller roof, but the intent was to make a multi-purpose building.
Bob, did you have a question before Sam and then?
Yeah, I had noticed on the highway when we were talking on previously here, I saw that there was a major increase over what we had originally, I'm trying to find it here again where I just was. Okay, I'm gonna have to let it go because I can't see the line again that I had.
Well, Bob had a question, so
Yeah.
maybe you can find
Yeah.
it. Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
I have a follow-up question to the salt shed, the old versus the new. The new shed is capable, from what I understand, what you just said, was capable of taking in, or its capacity is 800 ton? If that is correct,
Yes.
what is the capability of the old shed?
Well, I'm just gonna guess, Bob, that it's maybe less than 200.
Okay,
Did you find?
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
I did. I noticed that we have the large increase in some of the product that we're purchasing, like crushed stone, for instance. Was there a project that came upon us that we spent another over $10,000 on crushed stone. I see, is that the type of project?
Yes, but, I believe your question is about additional expenses for stone, because you broke up on my end. But
Yes.
Greg, could you handle it? Because I may not have heard the whole question.
I would have to research it. I don't know specifically why the crushed stone is higher, but I can try and research it and get an answer.
Well, yeah, I was just curious if that is something that we're foreseeing to reoccur, or that was something that we just had something major happen, that we spent an extra $10,000 on. That was just my question. I see we budgeted 2,000 again, so my question was, are we anticipating whatever happened before to be happening again?
No, I would say not.
Okay.
Dennis has a question, and then,
Well, in the description, if you look at that, it talks about calls as needed and pending emergencies. And as I recall, I thought there were a couple emergencies that came up, one over on Smith Corner, and I thought there was another one where it required crushed stone this year or last year. I thought it was this year.
okay, Julian?
Yeah, I have a question. Is it possible some of that crushed stone was used for the expansion of the highway department's parking lot due to the elections?
Yes, that is possible as well.
Okay.
And if that were the case, because we had to move elections to the highway garage, would that be part of the Gopher grant?
No, none of that was paid for by Gopher. The Gopher money was fully expended prior to the work that was done over there.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion on the highway budget? No? Okay. All those in favor of taking the highway budget of $842,165 under consideration, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, 900. Okay, the next one, I have library down here. We didn't actually get the actual library budget, and I think that that's because it is level funded. If you want me to get the line item budget, I can ask
We certainly should have it.
Cab for that.
Yeah.
All right, we can put that off until next week. Let's do health.
Would you like to know what the selectmen had? I have a copy of it.
I can get a copy. I
All right.
mean, I
The
think-
number's 599,174.
Right, we have,
The purposes.
we have that number. It was level funded, but we don't have the actual document. So I will get that and we can review that next week. I'd like to just save recreation for last because we have a bunch of questions, so we can go on to health, the health budget of $88,617. Does anyone want to take that, make a motion to take that under consideration?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Darrell made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Bob seconded it. Is there a discussion? There were no questions that were sent for health. Anybody have any questions for the health budget? No? Okay, we can vote on it then. All those in favor of taking the health budget of $88,617 under consideration, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, so motion carries 900. The next one was human services. And that budget is for $41,950. Does someone want to make a motion to take that under consideration? Darrell's going to make the motion. I'll second it. Discussion?
One question.
Yes, Dennis?
Yeah, that organization that came last year,
So Rock,
So Rock, yeah. Did they come back this year? I don't think
I know that
see
it was mentioned at the selectmen's meeting.
It wasn't voted on to add to the budget last year, and so far this year, they were, I guess they were asked for information about how many citizens Plaistow were in Plaistow were being served by that service, et cetera. They came back with saying, we're not gonna answer that I don't think was a good answer. And, at this point, I don't think it's going on the warrant article.
Don't
but
they
could
have to
still be
come?
There could still be a citizen petition, like
So I
they
was
did
gonna say,
last
did they
year.
have to come before the board by a certain date?
Yes. So at this point, it's kind of up in the air.
Okay.
They haven't given us any good reason to accept them because they didn't give us the information we requested.
Uh-huh.
But
never filled out
they can
the
still be a citizen's
application.
petition. That's an option, like they did last year. Some things happened previously. So it's not going to be in the budget because it's not
So-
been voted on.
That was
They never
on,
went through that application process.
that's what he's saying.
Yeah.
They didn't finish the paperwork.
Well, they answered, but the answer wasn't complete. We asked for actually how many people are served. They wouldn't answer, they did not answer the question in the response.
So, I had a question now that Dennis brought it up. That was on the ballot last year, correct? The citizens petition made it to the ballot last year?
So many things going on. I believe it did.
So if that got voted down, which I think it did, does that mean it's like no means no? They
No,
can't-
because you can redo it every single year.
You can.
You could,
Okay.
anything, right, no means no only applies for that current year, and then it can be asked again. Just like the safety complex, it was on how many years? Every year it went in until it was yes. So,
Okay,
it only applies for that current year.
okay. Okay, so did that answer your question, Dennis?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so all those in favor of taking the human services budget under consideration for $41,950, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 900. Okay, recreation is next, and there are a lot of questions and answers. I don't know if people want to take turns reading them. I don't want to read them all by myself. If we want to do that, would we be willing to do that? Okay. You want to take the first question? Do you mind?
So back to the,
It's the thinner packet.
sorry.
That's okay.
First question was, due to the COVID, why do we need to make Recreation Director full-time this year? The reply was, the Rec Director has been a full-time position for over 20 years, and we anticipate things returning to normal in the new year. With COVID, there has been more planning that's needed to be done this year, and the logistics were much different than the past years. Also, Elders Affairs is now under Recreation, so there is time needed to be dedicated to that now as well. Some duties are preparing for the sports season, spring, summer, and fall, summer recreation, summer concerts, senior trips and activities, holiday events, and elder affairs, to name a few of the programs. This position also needs to be flexible, as it really isn't a 9-to-5 job, and the hours need to be adjusted depending on the time of year.
Question on?
Yeah, go ahead, Pete.
I thought that we had a part-time rec director for a year right after Christina left us. Is that incorrect?
We had no rec director.
Or no board?
I have a question
Yeah.
in regard to that. And Mark, you probably can answer this, is the rec director paid on an hourly basis or a salary?
Wow.
Do we lose them?
Did we lose anybody?
Then Greg probably could answer that one.
The rec director is paid on an hourly basis.
Okay. So it's figured 40 hours a week, 52 weeks, but there'll be some weeks, obviously, she won't get a 40-hour pay. Some weeks she would get overtime, or is it just figured as a flat amount?
Nope, she gets paid actual. If she goes over 40 hours, she would receive overtime. That's why we still have an overtime line there as well.
Okay.
Yeah, Pete,
Greg, is that normal? If somebody's salaried,
they're not set hourly.
It's hourly.
He just
Pardon me?
said hourly. You said
Oh,
hourly.
hourly, okay.
It's an hourly position.
So where it's outlined that it's a flexible position and they have to be someplace, it's not a typical 9 to 5 is what the answer says. Does that mean that it's possible you only work 8 hours 1 week when nothing's happening, and then you just budgeted for a 40-hour position?
That's correct. I mean, I know the current rec director has worked as low as probably 28 or 30 hours. And then she's worked, 40 to 42 hours, over the last month or two. So it is varied.
Okay.
But now that we've added the
Elder affairs.
elder affairs, that is now, we're now talking planning parties. If I remember correctly, elder affairs was dealing with the community center.
Vic Geary.
Yeah, the Vic Geary, I'm sorry. Yes, for gifts, parties, Christmas parties, gatherings, things of that nature. So this could potentially lead to more overtime. Am I correct?
Potentially, yes, but I have a feeling she will run her schedule so that she anticipates that. I think she talked about overtime mostly being in the summer, with the summer rec program more than anything.
Okay. Any other questions about that one? No. The next one was grounds and maintenance last year was $13,112.49. This year it's $44,000, and we just wanted to know why. The budget was level funded from 2020 to continue to make drainage and field improvements at Park and Smithfield at Ingalls Terrace. In 2021, it has also budgeted to have the multipurpose field reseeded and the drainage swales at Park cleaned out.
I have a question to that.
Yeah.
Is that work done in-house, or is that work budgeted for subcontractors?
Does anybody know that?
I'm here. Well, it's yet to be determined. It depends on the type of machines that are necessary to clean the swales. There's sections of the swales that can be reached with our current equipment, and then there's sections of the swales that cannot be reached with our current equipment. So then we do an assessment of manpower and what's available, and then we would rent a machine to clean them out. If it was cost prohibitive for us to do that, then we would go out for 3 quotes, and we would hire a contractor to do it. So that's our options. But in particular, if you remember, a couple years ago, we invested quite a bit of time and energy and money to clean out the swales, and they were nice and clean. Well, just in 2 years' time, they're overgrown again. So if we don't continue our maintenance program of these swales, then we'll be right back where we started.
Right, I guess my only point, Mark, is if we're doing it in-house, then we've captured that number in the salaries of the people that are working in-house. It looks like this number would potentially be for subcontractors, not in-house people, because we've already captured that number. So if they're doing it in-house, I would expect that number to be lower. If it was being done by subcontractors, I would expect that number to go up.
So the answer is it's both. It's gonna be what we can do in-house, and then what we can't do in-house, we're gonna use contractors.
Pete had a question.
Mark, 2 years ago when we had the company come in to clean out the swales, I thought that the intent was to clean the swales out and then have the highway department maintain the situation down there forever. Has that been changed?
No, I think what changed is that I personally did not expect that these swales would grow vegetation as quick as they did. I was surprised this year when I was out there. But it kind of makes sense that the amount of water coming through there, that it's providing a lot of hydration to these plants that are growing there. And we just don't have, we would actually have to send our people out there with hand clippers to actually clean the trenches out, or we'd have to rent a machine for them to do it. And there's special machines, and they're called, you know, either flail mowers, or they're gonna be some power heads that go onto an excavator. And our staff is not trained to run that equipment, so that's why we would defer to a contractor to do that specialty stuff. One of the other variables that we're dealing with now is we used to have a summer person for 30 weeks, 34 weeks a year. And through the unemployment and unavailability of hiring somebody for these positions, we actually don't have that position per se anymore, which was an extra body to help us keep up with the summer work and to do this extra stuff. What we have is we have a person that is a utility person that works in the general government division, and then works also at the upon request for the highway department to try to help out. So we're swapping people back and forth between departments on an as-needed basis. So that's what's changed.
Julian?
Yeah, I just have a question. Is there any way to, or has it been looked into, to line those swales in such a way that the plant life can't just grow from the soil?
Sam? Sam, do you want to?
Julie.
You have a question too?
Yes, but Julie, I'll let after Julian's questions answer.
So to Selectman Kiska's question, so we have a lined treatment, we have a lined swale over at the new Public Works garage, and then on top of the liner is the stone. And that also grows vegetation on top. You may not know it, but we have kept that vegetation down. So vegetation will still grow on top of a lined system. Maybe it won't be as much, but give you an idea, those lined systems with the stone get expensive. The cost for the one at the Public Works garage was in excess of $70,000. So if I look at the comparison between Park and the Public Works garage, I'm just using that estimate there. You're talking several $100,000 to probably line it with riprap and a liner and to do that type of a drainage swale.
Sam, you had a question?
Yes, for Mark. Is there a reason why, or is it being used, why the over the guardrail boom mower, roadside mower on the New Holland tractor can't do that work?
It can do part of it. I would say that it could get out it could get off the road out there on Carly's Way, heading up the softball fence to a certain point. But I don't think it can get way out back because of the terrain and the angles. You know, the angles, I think, would be not safe to run that machine on. I think we need a track machine for some of those steep angles.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions about that, Bob?
Yeah, I also noticed that we were $100,000 less actually this year on what was budgeted and what was spent. Will any of that offset? Why is none of that offsetting this coming year?
Are you talking about the recreation budget?
Yeah.
Or the highway, the highway budget? You're talking
No,
about this?
recreation.
The rec. We were 100,000, we budgeted 203, and we actually spent, as of October, 108. So,
I'm gonna defer to Greg because we extensively went over the rec budget and he's my numbers guy.
Can you repeat that question? I'm trying
Certainly.
to follow it because it's breaking up on this end.
okay, certainly. We budgeted over $203,000 last year for the rec. But we
Yes.
only spent 108, so we spent a little over half of the budget. Okay? Why did the surplus not offset this year's budget of almost $90,000? Why is that not offsetting our budget this year?
Well, budgets, one, don't work that way. Two, we still have a long ways to go between now and the end of the year. And three, the recreation budget will probably be 90% expended by the end of 2020. Because the selectmen and the like, we have the projects that have gone on over there that we're still making adjustments to the expenses with what was approved by the selectmen. They approved $48,000 to come out of the recreation budget in 2020. So it may look like there is a large surplus at this point, but there really is not. Really the only surplus in the recreation budget will be the summer rec line item.
And I'd like to add to that, Bob. So Greg and I did a complete analysis and projecting out on the recreation. So as he said, 90, 95, maybe even closer to 100%. We're actually not able to actually cover a cost of about $7,500 that was related to the parking system, unanticipated expense that came up, which was the septic system was right in the path of the driveway going in. So that was a immediate change order and it was unanticipated. Greg and I searched high and low today within the budget to see if there was some funds available to make that recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. But one of the things Greg and I did not want to do was to even think about using the rec program funds because those are dedicated for the rec program. So, you know, we're trying to follow along with an approved method of using the money that was for that purpose other than the unanticipated. And the unanticipated, we're going to go to the Board of Selectmen on the 14th to ask for the contingency fund to be used for that $7,500.
So we're still seeing, and as Greg said, it'll probably be used up or depleted by the end of this year. With COVID and everything going on, what are we talking still left for the rest of the year that the rec committee is doing? I mean, what projects? I mean, or what expenditures are we talking?
Well, we think, first of all, we think that there's going to be leftover funds in the summer rec program, and we're not going to touch those. But there are some winter projects going on now that are programs that the rec director is doing.
Okay.
And Sam had his hand up, but he's paused now, so when he comes back, we can ask. The next question was summer rec last year was $11,335.91. This year is $29,595. Why? Due to COVID, summer rec was unable to travel and had 1/3 of the campers in 2020 that we expected to have during a normal year. In 2021, we are budgeting for a normal year.
Max?
Yes.
I absolutely don't understand the answer to this question. It sounds like we only budgeted $11,335 for this year, But for a normal year, we're going to budget 29,000. Why didn't we budget 29,000 for this year?
I think that if you look at the budget.
I don't understand the answer.
Did you look at the budget? Because I think that's probably just based off of the actual from last year. I don't.
Yes.
Budgeted 29,000.
What was it budgeted for last year?
29,595.
So it's level funded. They just didn't spend as much because of COVID.
And to follow up on his
Yeah.
question, I think that it's a reasonable question because I don't think any of us, as we sit here, think this COVID issue is going to be finished in 6 months. So to budget for a full year of normal activity, I think is a reach at best. It's really a bridge too far at that point.
I'm curious. I know we had asked in the past for actual numbers of enrollment of programs, and we still have yet to receive actual numbers. We're going, it's a third of what last year was, but we don't actually have what last year was. We haven't been able to get those answers. I'm curious to see how many people
Right.
are actually serviced in the community.
Could I just make a comment?
Yep.
With some information. It's not meant to go in one direction or the other. So the summer rec program is exactly that, summer rec program. So there's a limited amount of weeks, and it's usually in the exact summer months when school's not in session. So to the point about COVID, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know there's going to be more people that want to participate in the program in the next summer rec program. What happened this year is obviously there was a big adjustment, big learning curve to socially distance the summer rec people. So there were tents set up and the proper spacing and all of the safeguards in place, and it went well. And they limited the program because it was a beta test to do the right thing. And so they were hovering around that number that she gave, which was what, 35 people. So I would just say to you that if there's a demand that's more than 35 people, which there was this year, but they just said no to people, that they would probably make the accommodations to be able to comply with all the COVID guidelines, for the next summer and expand that program because of the demand. The only reason why it was limited was to comply with the COVID guidelines and the uncertainty on what was happening at the time. And I believe, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think, Darrell, you said that you thought that the COVID thing would be done in 6 months on a prior budget thing tonight. And the answer is,
Yeah, I thought that we'd be well out of it probably in 6 months, and that would be in June, July. So we'd be eating up at least half of what your summer rec would be.
well, no, because the summer rec doesn't start until July.
Okay.
So assuming that the first 6 months, your argument that, or your thought that it could be behind us in 6 months, if it actually was behind us in 6 months, the summer rec program wouldn't even start yet, and it would start in July. So that's why we're talking about, we're trying to guess. It's a crystal ball thing.
Yeah.
What do we do? What is next June, July going to be like? I don't know.
Dennis had a question also.
Yeah, my only thought, based on what Darrell's saying is, what if it is back to normal? We don't know. So you're gonna turn families down and kids down from participating in a program that they rely on so they can, family can work during the summer and so forth and turn away a number of kids. So, worst case scenario, if that happened, we're turning away a number of kids from a summer recreation program that has run very successful and it's down for many years. So I would not want to be in that position.
I understand.
Any other questions?
I can read the next one.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
Question 4 was, what is the balance of the rec capital reserve account? And the answer was approximately $38,000, all of which is committed to the trail project.
Okay, before we get into that, Sam, has his question from before. Go
Oh,
ahead,
I'm
Sam.
sorry, Sam.
Go ahead.
That's all right. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Last year, I believe we budgeted, money was asked to be added to the budget, and I believe it was granted for a secondary service for the fields. As I remember it, the department crew couldn't keep the mowing demands of the athletic fields because they need to be more than once a week. I understand that. And I believe we put extra money in for some reason, $17,000 sticks in my head, I don't remember why. To have another company, a professional turf management company come in and alternate mowings with the highway department crew. I didn't know if anyone could answer if it ever happened or not, or after that money if it didn't.
Greg, I'm just going to ask you if you recall seeing any invoices from a landscaping company that supplemented the pond.
I can't say with 100% certainty, but I think we have paid them, that company, we have paid to do some work over at those fields this past year. I'm pretty certain that we have.
Thank
Does
you.
that- Okay. So Bob read the question about the capital reserve fund. Was there any questions about how that was used? No. Okay, the next question was, what is the balance of the rec impact fees? Currently has 0 in there. Does anyone have any follow-up questions about that?
Yeah, why?
What was it used for? Do we know what the impact fees were used for this year?
Yeah, the selectmen approved them using it on the park, the softball field project and the like, that we explained further with some of the other questions here, I believe.
Okay.
Okay.
What is the balance of the rec revolving account, and when was the last time money was withdrawn or deposited to that account? Approximately $35,000, and the last purchase was May 5th, 2020 for my rec software purchase. Any questions about that?
What? Yeah, what is, so this software, is this, this is on our equipment, on the equipment, or the laptop, or whatever that is used? This is department equipment, correct? So this software won't need to be updated once it's purchased, that's it?
No, that's, the $3,500 is a yearly fee to utilize that software.
Okay.
The next question we kind of already covered, but it was how many campers attend summer rec. So this year the numbers were quite a bit lower due to COVID. They had around 25 to 30 a week with restrictions. They couldn't accommodate the usual 100 plus campers per week that we normally get. We anticipate that we can get back to normal numbers and normal camp with the vaccines coming out. We are preparing for a normal year. Last year was anything but normal. Next question, are the rental fees for park deposited into the revolving fund? And the answer is they are deposited into the general fund.
Right. Do we have the other question? What warrants a full-time rec director? And then it goes back to,
We kind of covered that
yeah,
in
we
the
did cover
beginning.
that one already.
We also covered the what hours, because it's flexible. What necessitates an overtime line for the rec budget? There are weeks, especially over the summer, when the rec director could exceed 40 hours a week, especially with summer recreation and summer concert. Sometimes 40 hours in a week is not enough to get things done, as there are not only office hours, but locations that the director needs to be at. I just had a follow-up question about that. I know we have a summer rec director also, so the main rec director also has to accompany to the summer rec programs, or is it separate?
That's separate. She certainly oversees it, but she's not physically there from the open to close. She certainly could be if there was a need, but the summer rec program is dedicated to that program. You know, she's called the summer rec director, but it's quite a bit different than the rec director.
So does the summer rec director also have overtime? I guess it's overtime for both rec director positions?
No, there's no overtime for the summer rec director.
Okay. I guess I was just confused that the overtime for the main rec director would be involved in summer recreation if there's already a summer rec director handling it.
So I'm going to correct myself in the extent of that they're very good with making sure that they're there. They're not going to leave campers there if their ride doesn't come to pick them up on time because of some unfortunate delay. So I will tell you that we will follow the law that if the summer rec director qualifies for overtime because of unusual circumstance, then we would use that line to compensate that person. We're not going to run afoul of the law, but that's not the intent, is to have built-in overtime.
Okay.
I'll read the next one. How much money was withdrawn from the rec impact fees to pay for the new softball field, drainage, and trails? Approximately $118,373.
Were any funds withdrawn from the rec capital reserve account to pay for the improvements done at park? Approximately $40,468. Have any funds been withdrawn from the rec revolving fund for 2020? Yes, we already went over that. Additionally, this fund is used for trips and other self-supporting programs. With 2020 being 2020, we canceled scheduled shows and trips.
And does the rec commission have a minute taker? If so, why aren't the minutes on the town website? A member of the
What does that have to do with our budget?
I have no idea.
Well, if
Sorry.
they had to pay for a minute taker, I mean, that would be in the budget.
A member of the commission takes the minutes. Minutes have been recently posted.
How many Little League players were there this season, and how many softball players were there? There were 3 baseball teams and 4 softball teams. Do we know the number of people on the teams, just to get an idea of how many people enroll in the softball and baseball programs? No.
I don't have that information, though.
We have, are there security cameras at park? No, there are no security cameras at park. It is on our plan, but we haven't been able to budget for it.
Is there a fee to play virtual bingo? There is no fee, but the prizes total between $40 to $50 per week. Is rec paying for Zoom, but the town is going to using GoToWebinar? And yes, the rec pays $150 a year out of the budget for Zoom because Zoom is easier and more efficient for everyone to access. Is there a plan to get all the town meetings on one platform?
No.
No.
There's different reasons to have higher security on some and not so much high security on others. And then that's a function of Dean and a function of what the platforms can and can't do. Dean is part of that process in choosing it. Early on, Zoom was not a consideration because of the, we had information that people were Zoom bombing. We had to make a decision. We made the decision to go with a more secure site, which was the GoToMeeting, and here we are. And it's fluid. If there's new platforms that come out, we'll be looking at them, and we're going to try to get the one that is the most versatile and user-friendly that we can. So, you know, we're like every other community that this year here has been a learning curve for all of us and we're still doing it. You know, Sam's connection's not that good. Sometimes my connection's not that good. You know, there's an upgrade that needs to be done to people's home computers or their hotspots or whatever. So we're all learning what the best platform is to connect, and it's a work in progress.
Okay.
Yeah, the question, this question pertains to the Recreation Warrant Article P-21-15 that requests money for fencing around the new ball field at Park, also for the shortstop fence, the dugout, and et cetera. Past discussions indicated that recreation impact fees would be used to fund this new ball field, not the Rec Capital Reserve funding. Why are impact fees not being used to pay for the new ball field construction items? And the answer was impact fees were used to build the field.
Bob?
But that doesn't answer the question. The question is, why are impact fees not being used to pay for those other items, which is all a part of the new ball field?
I would refer you back to question 5. What is the balance of the rec impact fees? They've all been spent, so there is none.
Okay, but there's still homes being sold in town. I see it in the paper every week. There has to be impact fees coming in on a regular basis.
Homes being sold does not qualify for impact fees. Homes being built from scratch does, and I don't believe that the building permits, and given the town is built out as much as it is, that is not a solid source of income in the future.
Well, at least monthly, Greg, there's homes being sold up there on Colley's Way, and those homes are selling for over $500,000. I would assume that that would be a regular flow of impact fees coming in? Or are they somehow delayed?
It's based on new building permits for new construction, not home sales.
Okay.
I'd like to jump in. So whatever does come in the future for impact fees would have to go through the process to be approved by the Board of Selectmen, to be used, to be spent for the purposes the Board of Selectmen, authorize. So it's not that we don't expect more to be coming in, because there no doubt will be, but right at this point, there's nothing in the fund.
Okay.
So that was all of the questions. Do we want to make a motion to take the recreation budget under consideration?
I make a motion, we take it under consideration.
Is there Daryl seconds it. Discussion we already had. All those in favor of taking the recreation budget under consideration for $210,695. Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 900. Okay, so for new business for next week, I'll get the actual budget from the library. Are we any closer on getting a waste collection contract? Have you guys agreed to that yet, Julian?
No, hopefully, maybe next meeting.
Do you know, so it's slated for next meeting?
I have
No,
not
that's
seen
not-
the agenda for next meeting yet.
Where the only thing that could happen is if the results of the RFP could come in, but there's not going to be a decision made at the next meeting.
So this number is based off of the JRM contract?
That would be a baseline.
Okay.
And with whatever incremental increase that you or I could guess what it might cost. So that's a starting point.
Okay. Well, I'll put, do you know when the RFPs are supposed to come in for that?
I don't have the date on me right now. I know it's on the website, but I don't think that even if it does come in the next week, it's not going to be decided at the next meeting.
Okay, I'll try to plan that out in advance then. For old business, I know Bob met with the fire chief. I don't know if you want to give us a recap of
Certainly.
what
I'd glad
happened.
to. As you all know, I did meet with the fire chief, Chief Knudsen. I took him up on his invitation at our last Budget Committee meeting on the 17th. I met with him the following afternoon. The meeting was mutually informative and productive, and those actually were Chief Knudsen's words, and I agree with him. We talked about multiple topics, including his plans for requesting warrant article funding for the replacement of the tower truck, scuba gear, fire department radios, and the fire rescue ambulance over the next few years. We also discussed the ISO rating with the main focus on EMT training, since most of our fire calls are medical for medical assistance, and that most of our fire department personnel are EMTs. As we all heard from Chief Knudsen saying that training is one of his biggest concerns, the email that I shared with everybody on the Budget Committee explained that why the training line was reduced this year. Actually, he took out payroll costs. Staffing of the two-person 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. overnight fire department shifts was also discussed in detail, even more detail than we discussed here at the last meeting. In order to cover the 168 hours a week to staff the two-person 12-hour overnight shifts with the current staffing levels, the overtime line item has skyrocketed, as we all know by seeing the budget to actual reports through October. Firefighter overtime is way overspent this year. I think it's doubled. Plus, we still need to have off-duty fire personnel responding to some calls during that 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. time period. It is very difficult to determine the seriousness of vehicle accidents until they actually arrive on the scene to determine if there are injuries, how serious the injuries are, and the number of people injured. For example, we talked about the very dangerous section of road in Plaistow, north of the town forest, especially at the 121A and Old County Road intersections. The majority of the accidents happen in that area at night. The police and fire response is always amazing. 3 police cruisers, a fire truck, the rescue ambulance, and a good number of fire department personnel, regardless of the seriousness of the accident. As we talked about, you don't know until you get there how serious it is and how many injuries there are. So naturally, that response always adds to the cost of that overnight cost of having that shift. The other fire department personnel that respond. The main problem is that when a lot of people respond and it's just a fender bender, that's really the problem, and it always has been. All these costs have to be taken into consideration when determining the actual cost of the 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. coverage. That was probably the main focus of my meeting with the chief, was to try to get a good handle on what it actually was costing. The last 9 months has been paid for by the COVID grant. So the COVID grant covered the coverage between April through the end of this year, the end of December. That grant was for $126,592. If we annualize that, and let's say it was for the full year, it would be $168,789. So rounding that off, it would be $169,000 for a year's coverage. At last week's Board of Selectmen meeting, it was discussed and approved that the warrant article P-21-7 for 24-hour coverage would be $171,000. And I'm assuming that that would probably include 3% raises for some of the fire department personnel. Wrapping our heads around the staffing of the 168 man-hours every week in order to cover the 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. two-person shift with our current staffing level, the effect that it's had on overtime, on top of Chief Knutson's concern about fire department personnel training, the critical need to replace fire department radios and scuba gear, as well as replace the tower truck, which is estimated to be, if we buy a new one, $1.3 to $1.4 million, and also replacing the Rescue 2 ambulance in the next few years. Its effect on taxpayer bills is difficult to determine. Taking all of these critical needs into consideration, the effect that it has with the current situation of COVID raging right now, and us facing another reassessment in 2021, the decision to fund the two-person overnight shifts should be made by Plaistow voters. In the Board of Selectmen's proposed warrant article, P-21-7. That's pretty much the conclusion that I came to.
So the Board of Selectmen has already suggested it be a warrant article?
The Board of Selectmen created a potential warrant article,
Okay,
but I think they were looking to this board whether or not you wanted to just put it in the budget, or do you want it to go to the voters?
so based
So it
on,
was, this, I guess this is an exceptional year. They was left in the hands of the Budget Committee to make the final decision. We made the warrant article in anticipation that you would or you wouldn't.
okay,
If you don't want to, if you want to just put it in the budget, that warrant article will go away.
okay.
I
So-
personally am in agreement. I like to see the voters vote on it,
Yep.
but that was not the vote of the Board of Selectmen, so I can't vote
Okay.
that way.
So should
I
we
agree. I
take a
think,
consensus of what we want to do with the,
yeah, I
position?
100% agree. I think that the people should have the final call.
okay. So does someone want to make a motion to remove
Can
that?
I ask a question
Yep,
on that? So if that was the case, would that reduce the current budget of the fire department?
Yes, it would. It would mean that those monies would not be in this budget. They would be added to the
Okay.
budget should the warrant article pass.
Okay,
okay.
So that would affect this
I would-
number on this sheet.
okay.
Does someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that I'll make a motion that the Budget Committee is in favor of the Board of Selectmen making a warrant article for is it one or two positions of the fire department?
However you wrote the warrant article, is it for one or two
Yeah.
positions?
Whatever was suggested by the chief for additional budgets
yeah.
is part of that number that the proposed warrant article would be.
Okay,
And then that would in turn reduce the budget that we have before us on these sheets. And if that passes, they would then get added on in following years. It would
Correct.
become then part of the normal budget.
Yeah, all right, I'll simplify my motion then. I'll make a motion that the Budget Committee is in favor of the Board of Selectmen working with the Fire Department Chief to develop a warrant article for appropriate staffing for the fire department.
okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Bob seconded, and then discussion?
Yes.
Yep,
The proposed warrant article, P21-7, is for 24-hour-a-day coverage. That's the way that it was worded a week ago, Monday.
Yes.
Okay.
It doesn't mean more employees, it just means it's 24-hour coverage.
Okay, so whatever 24-hour coverage will
But
cost.
I think it's the same thing that we're talking about.
Okay,
And the numbers seem to coincide when you annualize that COVID grant, which was for 6 months coverage of that shift.
okay.
And I don't know how it affects the line items in this budget specifically, so that would have to then be adjusted,
Correct.
this particular one.
Okay.
so.
Bob,
all
is that worded correctly, you think?
I think to make a warrant art, I think it's good enough for now. We don't have a number to vote on yet.
Right.
Right.
Okay, so all those in favor of creating that warrant article, say aye.
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 Opposed?
I'm
Abstain?
going to abstain because the Board of Selectmen hasn't voted on it
Okay,
until
so
next week.
702, two abstained, Pete and Julian. Okay, so my last bit of new business, I just wanted to get a consensus of the board because we are taking all of these, aside from the fire, which we just talked about now, we've been approving what the Board of Selectmen approved, and I just wanted to know where we stand as a board, because last year we wanted a reduction, and where this is a particularly difficult year, I wanted to know what the rest of the board thought of as far as the end game here. Darrell?
Well, I'll start out by saying that I think that we have to look at the whole thing as a package. I would ask Mark or Greg to give us some sort of an idea of what will be left in the general fund at the end of the year that may offset some of this. So that'll give me a better idea of what I'm voting on. Right now, I don't know whether we've got $500 left at the end of the year, or we got 5,000, 500,000, you know. But if I could get that number, it doesn't have to be tonight, but if I could get that number, that'd help me make a decision on where I would be.
Bob, your hand was up.
I also need some additional information. And basically, I know that we had a lot of COVID grant money. And what you mentioned, Greg, is that it's being put into a specific fund, and then it's being used from the fund. So it's not really offsetting any of the budget. So the budget surplus is whatever we've spent, and the additional money is being used to pay for some of those other things. It's very confusing to me. I don't have a clue as to how much grant money there's been, how much we're expecting, and how that actually affects our surplus budget this year. Because we must have some surplus left over with all the grants.
There will be surplus that is left, but the idea of grant money is to pay for costs that are over and above your budget. So that's why we've removed those costs from the budget, so you have a truer picture in your year-to-date expenditures.
Right.
There is roughly $180,000 of gopher money. The fire department grant was in the neighborhood of $120,000. So those two alone are approximately $300,000. There was some election money that came in to help offset the added absentee ballot cost money, but that's probably in the neighborhood of $15,000. But from a COVID standpoint, that's about the extent of it.
315,000.
Yep,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
So we'll work on getting that number for you.
That'd be great.
Do we have a ballpark of what the surplus will be yet? No? Do you know when
No,
that?
Yeah, as soon as all the bills come in after the end of the year and, we get a handle on unfinished projects and the like. So it is a very, very busy time right now with trying to close out the end of the year and, make sure that we're accounting for everything properly.
Okay. Yeah, Bob.
Is there,
Will we see another budget to actual report, another monthly report? We had, the last one we saw was October. Will we be seeing November's?
I hope soon, yes.
Okay,
Like I
thank you.
said, I've been, analyzing like crazy lately, making sure everything is, proper and the like with all the different projects that have been going on and all the different grants.
Dennis, you had a hand up.
Bob asked exactly what I wanted to ask, but also, back to your original question, I think we're moving along at a pretty good pace. I think, moving a lot of that, staffing money for the fire department is gonna make a huge difference for the budget. So I'd like to see what it's gonna look like after that and kind of see where we're at and what we need to do as far as we're comfortable with the bottom line. The other question I was gonna ask you, Max, if it's not too much of a hassle, could you, give us a list of the budgets that we've reviewed and what we have left to do at some point for our next meeting?
Yeah, well, when I send the agenda out with the remaining budgets, I'll send that out, and then, I mean, it's easier to list which ones we have left than it is which
Well,
ones.
Yeah, that's fine, yeah. That way, that'll give
We've
us a
done most
good
of
idea.
them.
Yeah.
Library, we haven't.
So, I guess my question for where we're going as a budget committee is to wait and see what that number is, and then go from there.
Yeah, to me, that's an all-important number, even if it's a rough calculation, it gives us a little bit of better idea.
Is that something that's doable, Greg?
By when?
Um,
What's your target date?
well, we'd
If
like,
it's next meeting, no.
No, how about, the week before Christmas? Is that
Yeah,
doable?
December 22nd, would that be reasonable?
That's reasonable if we get no snowstorms and, everything falls in. We're not at the end of the year.
I
I can give you
understand, Greg.
November numbers.
Yeah, I understand, Greg. I mean, we'll be at November 22nd or whatever it is, give it your best shot. That's all I can ask.
yep.
And I always do that. As, this is your first year, but I always do that.
Thank you.
We do have the,
What's reasonable for you, Greg? Would the 29th be better, or?
Well,
There is nothing that's 100% reasonable. I mean, it's,
we do have the public
No,
hearing
I-
on January 12th, so I just want to make sure we have adequate time
Right.
to make a decision before the public hearing.
yeah.
So, I mean, we can hope for this 22nd, and if something happens, something happens. It's a year of things happening that we can't anticipate.
Yeah.
So, okay,
Could I just make a comment?
yes.
So there's an event that is going to take place we're anticipating, and it's an unanticipated event. I don't know if that makes sense to you. We had no idea that this was likely to happen up until about a week ago. The unanticipated event is that Plaistow has been selected as a site for a regional vaccination site. What we don't know is the logistics or the cost to the town, and what we don't know is what may be reimbursable or what may not. So that gives you an idea of kind of the predicament we're in, because it could become a logistic that might cost us some money, and then we would seek reimbursement. So that gives you an idea of some of the unknown.
I think,
And
Mark,
then-
we
Go
understand
ahead.
that, and Mark, we understand that there's gonna be things that probably come up before the first of the year or right after the first of the year. I mean, I get it. All I'm looking for is a ballpark.
Yeah. Well, again, I'm going to give you a ballpark number that I've figured out. I figured out that a major storm runs us about $1,700 an hour.
Yep.
So, you know, you get one of those storms that's 10 hours, there's 17,000. You know, so, and sometimes, you know the way the storms happen, sometimes we get them back to back, or we get some long event. So, you know, it's kind of impossible for us to guess. I mean, we don't know how many storms we're going to
I
get
get
between
it,
now and
but-
the end of the year.
But what I'm saying, Mark, is if there's, in the general fund, as of right now, if you told me you had $1 million left over, then I'd take a different view on it than I would if you said to me, in the general fund right now, barring anything happening, there's $50,000 left over. I mean, I gotta know that number.
Are you talking about what's left over in the 2020 budget? Or are
That's
you talking
correct.
about the general fund? Because that's two different things.
Yeah, let's say the budget.
Oh, the budget. Yeah, that's something that, like Greg's saying, there's so many unknowns
I get it.
right now.
But you know something? I do it every day. It's what I do for a living, okay? Is make predictions, and you take the best ones you can.
Well, that's all well and good, but in the public sector, it's a little bit different than private sector, because we have to follow, you know, certain state laws.
I
We
get
can
it.
guess, but you know, if you notice, I pick my words carefully, because I'm not gonna go on record as guessing and then be wrong. So Greg and I try to predict with
Okay,
accuracy,
let me
but
put
we're
it a
not
different
gonna
way.
go out on the limb.
Mark, let me put it a different way. Give it your best prediction.
My best prediction is I don't know at this point, but Greg will hone that in sooner than later.
Okay,
Okay.
that's all I can ask.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, Julian?
Yeah, I just want to ask one thing. Is it possible to get the new fire budget numbers by the next Board of Selectmen meeting? Knowing we're going to go with the warrant article for the 24-hour coverage?
If you look at the original handout from the budget, we broke out what the budget would look like without the fire increase, which is basically within a $12,000 or a $14,000 level funded budget, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
But that number was provided earlier. And I don't mean to put you on the spot, but that information is out there.
I just want to make sure we have a new, a current sheet that we can vote on possibly by Monday.
I will get with the fire chief in the morning and we will make sure that you have that.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that's everything. I will adjourn the meeting at 9:15 and send the agenda out tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.